We, we are going. We are going. Smoothest live stream ever. All right. Going back to Lightwave days and the first iteration of some character rigging. Go ahead, Lukash.
Yeah, like I said, 19 years ago, first pretty much macro. I think it was Lightwave 7 when I did something for the first time, and it was pretty much just a macro. The whole rig was generated by, a macro, and a script, like a proper script in L script. I think was it was auto character setup 4 in 18 years ago, and pretty much in December I released in December, like I don't know, 24th or 5th of December. 19 years ago was like first commercial version, first a big version.
Wow. So that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Time goes fast, but that is like the end of the .com era. So,
Yeah.
so, and then obviously technology has changed, but rigging, interestingly, is has been one of those facets of 3D animation that hasn't seen a huge breakthrough in terms of something like a sculpting breakthrough like ZBrush was, or like interactive rendering. It's still a
Mhm.
work, sort of a labor intensive segment of production. And that's one of the things you're trying to solve with this is taking that intense labor out of it. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. That's. I mean, in a nutshell, it's about making this. Like if you when you do modeling, you sort of, when you are focused on artistic side of things, you think in terms of like composition or light, or and when you do this character rigging or character type of work, you unfortunately have to plunge into lower levels suddenly, and so this is what I'm trying to get rid of from the process. So you can try to work with rigging or with animation in a more like stay on a higher level basically, and never have to plunge into the somewhere deeper in the rigs, or in some technical aspects.
Well, that was my experience, and I loaded up the pre-release version. And it is out in pre-release right now. Last night, and started playing around with one of the quadruped rigs. Now, so first of all, like I think you succeeded in that because without looking at a single video or manual or anything, I loaded it up and just started doing poses, and just the controls did what I suspected they would do. And for instance, if a control is for rotational only, and you try to activate the transform tool, it'll just gray it out. You can't drag it out and break the rig, things like that. It's sort of idiot proof in that way. And so there's that. But it looks like the goals for this, you obviously had a modular system in mind, because the previous version of this really only did bipeds, and you really didn't. You could modify the rigs a little bit, but it really wasn't part of the. It wasn't really what you were
Um,
after.
no, I mean, the story is different because first I think presented this to Luxology, then 9 years ago was the first time I started doing something. And actually I started from a modular test, so it was already modules, and I really wanted it to be modular from the beginning. But it just, because at that time there was pretty much no point of reference, like no more complex rigs in Modo. I had no idea how much stuff I can put into it, how the IK is going to behave. Was everything I had to test, as I went. So there was a lot of stuff, piling up, and then it appeared just getting modules was way too much. So at some point I just decided that the first version is going to be just biped, just one rigging asset. On top of that, I was doing everything manually, because I had no scripts for even stuff like mirroring modules. So I actually had to build right side and then left side, and when I had a bug somewhere, I need to update right side and the left side. So it was very, very tedious. So for ACS2, I actually reworked the ACS2 rig. Even though it looked the same, it was reworked to be sort of modular. I mean, it was modules, they were just fixed in place. So yeah, I was kind of trying to get there, but just it just appeared to be way beyond the scope of what I could do at that point. And so you could actually customize ACS2 rigs. You could build custom ACS2 rigs, but it was just very manual and not fun process. I think only Sergio Muccino, he was and Christian Bloch, I think he also with doing the troll bridge project, they
Oh
both
yeah,
did. They went that far that Christian, he did a custom face rig that
right.
was behaving just like a native ACS2 rig, so it was perfectly integrated, working with poses library, everything. So it was possible, but it was very hard to do, very manual, tedious, and and actually before starting work on ACS3, I was actually considering trying to augment or enhance ACS2. I started trying to write modules for this, and after I think 3 weeks or so, I just gave up because it was nightmare, and I thought that I have to start over.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it really shows the amount of preparation and thought you've put into this, and it's nice. So there's a couple of things I want to say about Lukasz. So he's obviously a talented coder, but and has a technical mindset, but he's also an artist, and he's had work just at the last SIGGRAPH. He had some of his own personal work displayed, so he's an very accomplished artist, and you can really see that he's put a lot of thought into ACS in terms of usability, both in terms of performance, how you can hide the main mesh and use either boxes or even chopping up the mesh based on the weighting. And some of that was shown in last week's Friday Brew O'Clock, and we'll link to that below. And also, just there's a full animation interface for keying and saving out presets. It's really a lot more than just a rigging system. It's an animation system. So it's a rigging, modular rigging system, an animation system, and you've just put a huge amount of effort into it. I'm guessing at some point you probably had to draw the line in the sand and say, I actually have to deliver a product and need to stop adding stuff, because I know you've been working on this really hard, and you have not been working in a bubble. Like, I know you collaborate with the developers at Foundry directly, also with other rigging experts like Rich and Sergio and some of the other people that Moto people are familiar with. And honestly, you look at these rigs, and if you can get on the pre-release and load up the dog or the dinosaur or some of the people in there, it's like Moto's a really solid rigging and animation program, and certainly doesn't get the credit it deserves, I think, in this. Like,
Sure.
I'm just like, and along with the advanced viewport and some of the just the interface, it just looks nice. Just the locators look nice, the controls look nice. It's just a pleasant environment, and having used the previous version, it just really does look like a next gen version of this. This is not a small update, So that's my 2 cents. I think, I'll ask a couple questions, and then we're going to show some demos here. But one of the I think probably most important questions here is somebody asking. Gangsta Geek Art is asking, he's curious how it'll work with game development. So is there a workflow from taking these rigs and the output, if you spend a lot of animating them or whatever, and bringing that to either Unity or Unreal Engine?
Right. So right now it's not implemented yet. So if you get current build, you can export. You cannot export. And the plan is to do this in 2 stages. So the first stage is the baking command, which will be very similar to what ACS2 has. So that's just gonna bake the rig into hierarchy that you can export with FBX, and that's like is baking all the actions, and you can then export the whole package. But then there's also plan, and this is something I did for ACS2 actually, but never finished it. So it was kind of stopped. There was supposed to be a version that was never released, and it was more proper game export tools, which were I plan to do it the same for ACS3, and hopefully I can make it. Is that it integrates with the game export tab in Modo's interface. It basically adds another tab that is named, I think, character, and when you flip to that, it will just see ACS character in the scene, and then you can use all the same settings, like the project settings and use the presets for Unity and Unreal, and do the export from there. And the plan is to make it possible to export everything at once, but also separately mesh or just single action. So make it much more robust and faster to use as well. So that's the plan. It's not implemented yet. Baking should be coming soon, hopefully, because I have already done quite a bit of work on it. So hopefully in the next build, in a few
So
weeks.
so when you implement the actual game export, is that something that users can just upgrade to? They just download this newest version, or is that a separate product?
No. I mean, like the early access, because for this early access, until we get to the final stage, every few weeks there will be a new build that has something, added or fixed, or basically an improvement going towards beta, and then towards final release. So yeah, you will be just able to, if you get it in now, you will be able to get all the builds that are on the way to the final release, and just uninstall old one, install new one, and use new features.
What's the best place to communicate with you about early access? Any sort of issues people find, or any sort of features? Like, for instance, if Gangsta Game Art wants to has a particular workflow he's looking for and wants to communicate with that, before you're neck deep in how you want to do it. Like, how do they talk to you?
I think it's the Discord server is probably. I think it's probably the best way. I just started it, prior to the early access release. On the ACS website, there's a link to it with invitation, I think. So if you just follow the link, you should be able to join. And yeah, I'm monitoring this one all the time, so you can ask questions there, and it's good because also other users will be able to read, and so that sort of the knowledge will or information will propagate. Yeah.
So we'll link to all this stuff in the description, the Discord server, and of course ACS's website and all that stuff. He also hangs around just the Foundry Slack. I know you can, if you at him on there, you can hit him up there too as well. So so there's that, and so my guess is it's going to be whatever Lukasz does. It's going to be super robust. That's just kind of how he operates. So Will Vaughn is asking, somebody had asked him if they want to create a number of rigs, just modular rigs, can they sell them? Now I know some of Will's previous kits, like the what's it called?
Polystyrene.
Yeah, right. Polystyrene, Franken Devil. Polystyrene. There were some motor users that sold these huge kits for like $5 or whatever of kit bash stuff. So, can people do that? They're just
that's the big part of my plan, actually, to enable community to do this stuff, so I don't have to do this. So
yeah. Donate rigs, sell rigs. They're just moto assets, right? They'll just work in moto.
Yes. So that's the big plan. That's a big reason for why it took so long, because this time, instead of going sort of short way and hard coding things or doing things the way I can only understand, I'm trying to make it into sort of rig development environment where you obviously need to know rigging, but once you know that, the idea is that you are able to build your own custom modules that will be working just the same as the default one. So I am actually really looking forward that it's not the immediate future, because there's quite a few things that need to be finished first for that. Once the final release is out, and maybe during the course of this year, next year actually, I managed to get this rigging development environment better. I really hope that there will be some interest in adding some sort of fourth-party extensions to ACS.
Well, I think there will, and I think just some of the just regular moto guys are going to make some rigs and share them for free, and stuff like that. For me, I can't tell you how fun it was just to load up the dog, because I just as somebody who, I've done a fair amount of rigging myself, and I've done a number of animals, for some of my scientific clients. And when you have a project come in, type of work, if you're doing that type of work, people, the clients don't necessarily understand rigging as part of the process and the cost involved. And there was no option for a off-the-shelf quadruped rig in Moto prior to this, that I knew of at least. And I have used the previous ACS2 for things like medical videos and things like that, even for just posing. I always say, even for posing, it's just because you could fit the rig super fast. You have this context system going on. So even people who are just doing medical animation, they just need to do some posing, pose doctors, patients, whatever. It's super awesome just for that. But being able to bring in an animal and just start animating is just so exciting, because people enjoy animating as something you want to do, and once you start animating and fiddling with it, you realize it's a huge amount of work, and you never get to that fun part if you're daunted by the rigging aspect and your legs are flying around. But here it was just so nice to see that. I was just so happy in the dinosaur rig. I was just so happy to see those in Moto. Cool. Not really a question.
They are still incomplete things, so they should still hopefully will be more robust, and they are still missing some features. Yeah, so it's not the end of the story here.
Totally. Well, we got some demos. You want to just start showing some demos, and we'll just kind of go back and forth. If people want to ask questions during the demos, we can do that. Okay.
Yeah. So let me just okay. So I got a few things. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yep, you share your screen.
All right.
And do you want to go full screen on this, Lukasz, or do you want to just?
I think we can go full screen for a moment, and just so it's more readable.
We can do that if I can figure out the.
If not, then we just stay.
I think that did it. All right.
All right.
Advanced Viewport is looking good. I gotta say, Advanced Viewport is coming along.
It's the biggest change was 14.1. I think that was the time at which I could actually start using it for rigging, and animation as well. Yeah. So this is a rig. This is actually a character by François Deglaire, and he's doing really some really cool characters that have always nice topology. So they're always great testing cases for me. So I use Francois' characters a lot. So this is a case, like if we go back to ACS2, then we have a fixed sort of skeleton, and you can only do characters that fit that skeleton. And if you need something more, then there's quite a bit of tedious work involved to add new joints properly. So obviously with this it is much easier. So here you can see I already have this one customized, like it has an antennas and it has some extra foot toes as well here at the bottom. So if I go to animate, I can grab these and I can do some extra bit of animation there. I just wanted to show you very quickly because again it was shown more in details last week on Foundry stream.
So can I ask a question? Like those little handles you just grabbed to rotate on the antenna, those seem new to me. I don't remember those in ACS2.
No, because this is what I already extended. So I already took a biped, like ACS3 biped, and then I just extended it. So I dropped more modules, namely the FK chain module. So it's just a chain of modules that you can set the whatever length you want for it. The number of segments. And then so this one already has quite a few of extra things added, like I said, like a toes and those antennas. So I just wanted to show you how you actually do this now in ACS3. So here it sort of got the wings, in the back, and these meshes are separate meshes, so they are not being deformed. They just rigid meshes. So now if I wanted to rig this in ACS3, then all I need to do is get to my module presets and find the module that I want to use for this. And there are a couple to choose from. You can choose an FK joint or an aim at joint, and then you have two variations, which is aim at joint is this is going to be a deforming joint, which means that it needs to be bound to the mesh. And then you have an option of having a rigid joint, which is what I'm going to use for this one. It will be a joint that is in the skeleton, but it doesn't have a deformer. So it will be sort of a point to attach other things to. So I'm going to use this aim at rigid joint, and I will switch to side view, say, and drop it here. So it's all drag and drop. It should drop under the mouse if you're in the orthographic view. The perspective is a little bit wonky right now, so you can land in some weird place in space. But so once you drop it, typically you need to rename it the way you want. So I will call it wing. Then you set a side for it if it's a sided thing. So here I will obviously have a right and left one. So I will change the side to the right, and you will see you will also see the colors will change to indicate. So if I do right, it becomes red, which means that it is a right-sided module. And then I can go to the guide context and grab this this thing that I added, and then this is the point where I just fit it, right? So I just set where is the rotation point, and then I can set where is the controller be, the aim controller. So the controller will be placed here at this tip, and then you will be able to move it to animate this wing. So let's say I'm going to do a very rough and unprecise fitting. So once you do that, I can apply it, this guide, and go back, and then it should be already here. And if I go to animate context, I should see my controller here at the bottom. So it doesn't do anything yet in terms of it doesn't move the wing. And I need to mirror it to the other side. So mirroring is also built in every module that that will come with ACS. Will be possible to use it, on both sides. So here I can just get the right wing and mirror with symmetry, which will just put it here. I get my progress window on the other. Yeah, so once you do this, then you need to connect it. So you need to tell it where it should hook up. And in my case, I will just hook it up to the spine, to the chest, actually, which is part of its spine. So once I do that, this is really already extended, complete setup. And the only last thing I need to do is actually hook up the mesh. So much like in ACS2, there is a context for managing meshes, and then we have the rigid meshes section where we can attach meshes that will be following the joints but will not be deformed by the joints. And here again, this is all drag and drop. So I will drag and drop my wings on these extra joints. And now if I go to animate, should be able to pick the controller here, which is the aim controller, and simply move it around, and I move it. This the wing gets rotated, sort of pointed at it. So
that's awesome. So a couple things I want to point out is you'll notice that he's got those different contexts over on the left-hand side, those icons there, and those will automatically bring you in and out of setup mode without you having to worry about that. So it's just going to the right context. Modo does all the stuff it's supposed to do in the background, and you're kind of just dragging and dropping. Like even you just drag those in. You went to the fitting context changes the look of the joints, so it's easier just to arrange them the way you want to, and you know that you're just doing the fitting. And you can pop in and just drag and drop to parent and pop in over to the animation context, and they're all there as part of your rig, and you bound the rigid objects. So it's just really well thought out.
Thank you.
And all the colors and all the naming and just the mirroring symmetry. So what you just did in like 10 seconds there, or maybe 20 seconds, I don't know. It wasn't that long. It was not that long. That's type of stuff that for a lot of people who are new to rigging, or even been in rigging a long time and have a rig this complex, is kind of confounding. You're like, oh man, how am I going to do this? Now I got to attach this part to this thing. And yeah, it's really cool to see that happen so fast.
Yeah, it's like I said, this is the whole idea is to keep it sort of you sort of surf on a high level, all the time, so you never worry about some internals of how this works. So that's the main goal here.
Now, let's say if you had, for instance, wanted those to be able to deform a bit, like the wings, like to bend or something, you could have added like an FK chain instead of the targeted, just that FK
Yes.
joint, and used a deforming instead of a sort of a parented
Yeah.
action as well. So you can pick what you want and you don't have to do this. I'm just curious, like if you decide you want to do that, is it
Hmm.
easy to remove those from the rig or
Sure.
not?
Yes. So let's say I don't like it. I want to change it. Then I first I should go to meshes and detach these rigid meshes, just so it's sorry. I should select the wings and do detached. So when you detach them, they just go back here in the item list. You can see they go off the rig hierarchy, just go back at the scene root scene level. And now I can just simply so this is the main context where you manage um, your modules. So here I have a left wing, and I simply go to let me see. So go to its properties. So if you select the module, you get the properties coming up. So I can get the left wing delete and the right. Let me see. I just select it right wing, and then so it comes up here. If I select an item that belongs to the module, it comes up here. So I can use this arrow, and it just finds it for me in the item list, and then I can do delete again. So right now I just deleted and then I can do the same using the, let's say, FK. Do I have it? Let me see. Maybe it's rigid joint. Yeah. So that's the same thing, but it's just sort of FK controller. So if I just drop it again into the scene, and just like before, you change the name. So you know what it is. You set the side, which is important. You can't mirror it otherwise if you don't set the side. And just like before, go to the guide, place it. Let's say here. You need to align the orientation as well the way you want. So let me do this quickly as well.
And this is what you would call fitting, right?
Yes, that's fitting.
This
So
is
I just say like how I want this controller to be orientated in the rest pose. So usually you just align it with that makes sense for you as an animator. So once I do this, apply. I'm not gonna go mirroring, so just so it's faster.
Sure.
And then connect again, and then go to my meshes, pick up this mesh, drag and drop,
Look
go
at
to
the
animate.
dragging and dropping is just awesome. We just connected all that stuff, just dragging and dropping right there in the interface.
Yeah, it finds basically now you can so you control it. This is exactly the same thing, but you just control it in a different way. So it really depends on what's your preference here. You can choose a way that suits either the animation that you want to do or your way of working.
Well,
Yeah,
and being able to remove things from a rig that easily lets you experiment a little bit, and you don't have to worry about your entire rig being destroyed when you remove
yeah.
a module.
I mean,
That's the point, right?
with binding, it's a bit more maybe not complex, but you just have to unbind the mesh every time because the binding will be different, the setup will be different, the number of joints and weight maps, and so but it's also possible. So if I go, here's a binding context. So here I can only see just the bound meshes, so you can see that the eyes disappeared, and I mean the second wing you can see it because it's not part of the.
So just to reinforce, if you're watching this, so he just switched context. You could see the icon on the left-hand side, the sort of the weight map. And so this is the binding context. So this is where, again, since you're doing, this is where you're setting the weights and all your vertices. And by going to that context, it puts you in setup mode, and it hides all the crap so you don't have to see it. And you only see what you need to in terms of, it's just really clean. It's just super nice.
Yes, exactly. So now you can easily, like if say if I want to make some changes for whatever reason, I can simply unbind, but I can keep my backup my weights and store my bind map. So it's gonna just remember the entire map. And so if I just unbind now, you can see that it's now wireframe, which means that if I go here and start moving the rig, I mean, you can already see that the antennas are not really aligning. But let me just grab some. Yes, see that. So you see that the rig now is separate. But let's say you do whatever changes you want, and if you didn't change the structure much, or you can bind again. You can use bind from map, and then if you do that, then it remembers all the other mapping that was there before. So you can just bind from map, and this simply just reconnects. So it's very fast because it just reconnects things back, and now you have it working again.
So that was okay. So what you did was really interesting. So you can unbind it, but you can save the binding data,
Mm-hmm.
and you could make a modeling change, I would guess, if you're not adding new vertices, right?
No, you can do with even if you add new vertices. It's really more about, for example, if you wanted to add more joints that deform. Say I wanted to incorporate this wing as deforming part, for example, and I can copy and paste it into the bind mesh.
Right.
Yeah, so then I have all the weight maps still for the body, for the head, for the everything. I don't have for the wings.
Oh, right.
So then you need to create the weights just for the wings, and then you can use the bind map to sort of automatically bind everything you had set up already, and just only manually pick the wings maybe from the panel. So it's really it's done in a way that it's not like you bind and that's done. It's done in a way that if you need to make such changes, you can unbind. You keep your weight maps. You keep the map of the binding, and then if you add joints or you remove joints, you can bind again. You can use what you had, and you can add some new stuff to this as well. So yeah, so it's yeah, the idea is to make it more flexible, so you don't feel like you're stuck. Once you bound the mesh, you're stuck.
Well, it can't be understated like how big of a deal that is, because weight mapping, binding and adjusting weights is again, it's very labor intensive. You'll get decent results by using the automatic system, which we're just using Moto's automatic system here. But you typically go in and you adjust things manually, and if you're rich here, you do that for a couple of days, and then but being able to save that and add new geometry and then get it, I suppose, does it just renormalize everything in a normalization folder, or how are you handling?
No, it's actually using, like, if you have your weight maps, for example, you do the first bind,
Yeah.
you do the normalized one, and Modo is generating the weights for you. But then you can do some manual work on top, and then you decide that you want to, I don't know, add 2 more joints somewhere. Then you just unbind, store your weight maps, and then you can do the changes you want. And when you go back, you can either bind from maps, so like reuse everything you had in there. It's not gonna create a new bind, it's just gonna use, or you can create a new bind which is going to create a new maps, and then you can these maps maybe delete ones that you don't want, leave ones that you need, and then bind from map again and just assign right maps to right joints. So yeah, it's obviously it's easiest the first step when you just generate the whole bind. It's fully automatic, but once you start adding things, the point is that you can reuse what you already had, and then you only add stuff that you didn't have in the
Right.
rig.
And my guess is if Foundry does improve, let's say the heat map binding, or maybe adds tetrahedral, weight mapping, it'd be pretty easy for you to incorporate that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, right. So any improvements in weight mapping and binding that are going to be coming in Moto would flow into ACS3 pretty seamlessly.
Yeah.
So I don't want to throw you off of your script here, but this is a good question, is do you have an example of mesh resolution? So for instance, let's say I've got this on my laptop and I just want to like res down, for instance, the character to maybe boxes or the cut parts. Is this something you can demonstrate?
Right. So this is another character. It's by let me see. So here I actually have. So I have two resolutions here. So this is the character by Kashif C. Riley, and it was insanely, high polygons, like I don't know, over 100,000, 150,000 polygons, something like this. So this is sort of mid-res. I removed the high res from this scene just so it loads faster. So this is sort of a mid-res, and it's kind of real time. And I created already a box for this box version. So here's the box version. I'm just switching to the box version. And let me see if I can.
So how did you create the box version?
The box version.
Is that just
box
geometry that is just parented
Yeah.
to
So
the joints?
yeah, these are basically, so you in this meshes context, we have bind meshes, which are the meshes that we want to deform. So in this one, if I switch to this one, I only see here, you can see the list of these meshes. So these are all the meshes, bind meshes for this rig, and I can turn them on or off for the particular resolution. So here I have a resolution that is called medium, and I have both of these meshes enabled. I can then switch to the proxies, and here I have all the box proxies, so you can see they are in the rig, in the scene, but they are not visible in this particular resolution. I can obviously, if I don't know, I will take the arm, left arm. You can see that now I have the box here, so I can simply tell which ones I want to see from each of the categories in a given resolution. So bind meshes, proxies, and then rigid meshes as well. And these are the rigid meshes, which are details on this character, such as I think the horns on the left arm. If you look here on the left forearm, it's toggling the horns here.
Oh yeah.
So these are actually attached as rigid meshes just to improve performance, because it's faster if it's anything. It doesn't need to change its shape. It can be isolated, and attached as a rigid mesh. It's just better performance this way. So, and when you are in this proxy context, you have those two commands: bind proxies auto setup and box proxies auto setup. So if I go with the box proxies auto setup, I can choose the name for the say new box proxy, and then I can say whether I want the size to be based on the bind locator length or shape properties. So shape properties is gonna just take the size that is here on the skeleton. So let's try this one, and if I do OK, it's just gonna start generating boxes which are just meshes, just cubes. So the point of this is to have something quickly that is renderable, that you can render. So now if I go to animate context, you can see now that this is my box setup.
So if you want to get up and going really quickly, you're not really worried about binding or your final mesh at all. You can bring in a rig or build a rig out of components, and then just auto create these boxes. And then you can, since they're just geometry, I'm guessing you could just go in and resize them real quickly. If you want.
Sure. You just go again to this proxy context, and let's say I will hide these. So you can they are just meshes. So if and they are items, they are parented, so they have the item space will be correct, so I can just size them. I can do modeling operations as well. Right now there's no symmetry support, so you kind of need to worry about two sides yourself, but at some point.
I just think that's such a great, when I said this was comprehensive, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Being able to auto generate boxes on your joints or your components. Then of course you can if you want to reshape them into the volume of the character, you could do that in 5 minutes, and then you could be kind of up and running if you if you want to. Then just bind your character later. Maybe you haven't finished it yet.
You can do this totally.
Yeah.
I want to add an option to actually automatically fit these boxes sort of to the volume of the mesh, but I can't promise anything right now.
Yeah, there's probably some interesting procedural way to do that. And yeah,
It should be fairly, not. It's really just a matter of which feature is more important, because, like like you said, it's not much effort to actually do this work yourself.
right.
And there might be other things that are better spent time on at this point in the development cycle.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, for people who just want to, a lot of people they just want to like load up something and get going, and even just to play around with it. And I think ACS gives you that. You can jump in, and if you just want to practice animating, just load up the dog or one of the people or the dinosaur, and you can just start going. You don't have to like deal with any of this other stuff. And
hopefully more samples down the line.
Well, for a lot of people who are learning, it's a big deal. It's like people who are learning rendering and lighting always say, "Hey, just go to Sketchfab, get some models, bring them into the scene, and just practice your lighting and materials." You don't spend 2 weeks modeling something. Just get something in there. And so for people who want to practice animating, this is, and just want to check out Moto's animation features, bring in one of these ACS rigs. Did you want to show what did you want to show next? IK/FK switching? Any other questions? Yeah. Throw them out here. I've got my eye on the list.
All right, so let's try the IK/FK switching, because that's been a huge thing to do. And actually here, Foundry did pretty much enabled it. Without what Foundry on Modo team did for 14.1, that this wouldn't be possible. So it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, they've worked pretty hard on the IK, really revamped it from a rigorous perspective. I know Rich has talked about this. You have more access to more data, and they've done multiple updates actually on this.
Yeah, it's been progressing since I think 13.2, and something new every release. So yeah, it's working pretty good right now. So I'll just show you. Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to ask one other question because it just seemed relevant. Like, when you get the game export stuff out, if people, again, they just want to see something quickly in a game, you can export those boxed. Can you export those boxed? Will you be able to export those boxed characters?
Well, if there is a demand for this, I'm pretty sure we can do this. Yeah, I'm not saying like I don't know how it would work workflow wise, but it should totally be possible.
Yeah, again, it just seems like a quick test. Like you've got a character with boxes, and you can. Okay, just curious. Go on.
I mean, you already can, like in ACS2, when you have rigid meshes, it already turns them into bind meshes, on the fly during the export for a game.
Right.
Imagine it could be something like this. You can turn, for example, your boxy setup into the bind mesh, for example, and export that. So then it would be sort of still exporting just the bind mesh, but you can quickly turn your entire box setup into a bind mesh. So I imagine that could be something that could work.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. So for this IK/FK seamless workflow. So like I said, the idea again, the idea here is to kind of take at least one of the tedious things away from animators. So don't have to think about whether I want IK or FK, blend between IK, FK. Just use whatever you want at a given time, either for posing or for interpolation between frames. So this is, let me see. Okay, so here I have, I'm going to just start with a basic pose. So let's say I want to make these legs to do a step, right? So let's say I want the right leg to do a step. So right now I have both legs in IK, as you can see. So this is what you really usually want to do when the legs are touching the ground. So let's say I'm gonna do another keyframe where this is moving like so. So I still have my the leg is starting to go up, but it's still IK, right? So here, and I'm just gonna do. So now, if I start moving this, I want to have this right leg in the air, right? So it's better for me to actually now have an FK on this one. So when I move the hips, the leg follows. So here I can quickly have these rings that it might probably change because I already received the feedback that it's sometimes you just hit these by accident. So yeah, so it's not what you want. So probably need to find a better way.
I did
But
that
for
last
now,
night.
yeah. So for now you just click the ring, and sorry, I'm just using stylus, so it's sometimes it's not. Yeah. So you click the ring, it goes to FK, but the pose is matching. So now if I grab this guy and start moving, I have my leg. It now follows. So from here on, I would like to again probably maybe use IK to actually move it further. So I'm just going back to IK and change my pose. To another one, right? But for the interpolation here, I actually want to use FK. So once I have my posing done, I'm just going again into FK and fine tune the pose, using just FK controllers. So at this point, you can see that it's just doing this, this blending automatically for you. And there's a small hiccup here because of the interpolation. So you can see that the knee is doing the hiccup, but it's only because the interpolation. So here I can go into another frame. So let me just so we are doing nice and clean. I'm just gonna drop this. It's prepared pose. So it goes like this. Then I go to frame 30 where I still want to have this sort of leg in the air. So as I move this controller, it moves with it. So let's say this is the pose, right? So I have already like this, and I keep my FK interpolation for this leg when it's in the air. And I think that frame 40, we can go here. And so for this, again, if I want to like put the leg on the ground, I just move this little bit. And again, for this situation, I might want to go back into IK again. So now I'm, it's just gonna start posing in IK, and so I'm just doing a really bad job now because I'm have my view. Yeah, but you get the idea that I'm switching between the two. So here I'm just again, I'm just gonna take a shortcut, use what should be in this place.
So I just want to interject. I like that you've got the pose window open on the side, and you're just sort of grabbing poses and then adjusting them. It's bringing that pose in on that keyframe, and you're adjusting it. And the color of the controller changing from that sort of pinkish to green, depending on IK or FK, is again just like really smart, like nice, polished workflow.
Yeah, it's a visual indication of what you are using. So
yeah.
And another thing here is that let's say I did an animation like this, but now I decided that I want this leg to land, I don't know, further, for example. So if I go here into the graph editor, and we'll pick my position here for this guy, and let's say I want to extend it, I don't know, make it reach further. So now you still have your FK interpolation for the other frames. So now if you do like this, there might be a jump here. Actually, you don't see it, but maybe if the difference was bigger. But you can sync. If I just sync now, there's a button to sync your keyframe. So both FK and IK pose they match, and then this just makes sure that let me just try again, just so the difference is more apparent. Let's say something like this. I will do something like this. So now no, actually it updates. So in this situation, it updated automatically. So it just it's doing too much. I just wanted to show something, but yeah. So the idea here is that you don't really worry about that stuff. You just this is my IK pose. I'm moving it wherever I want it to be, and I'm just going back, and you can see that FK just seamlessly goes into this pose. So it just gets updated underneath.
Well, so let's just, you have a sync button. There's two things I want to talk about.
Yeah.
One is you've got a sync button. Let's not gloss over that. So
Yeah.
If your IK and FK you're getting a bit of a pop or something slightly out of sync there, you just hit that button and it matches up those IK FK controls, so you can when you're switching back and forth, it's a seamless switch. Is that correct?
Yes, so let me try actually this, because this happens that it doesn't watch for all the changes. So for example, if I change this controller, it doesn't know that actually this IK pose has changed. So now when I go back, see, it's a jump here, because it's still remembering the old FK pose, and then it just jumps to IK here. So this is it didn't update. So this is the point at which you just hit this sync button, and then it just goes to this pose now.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So can you go through all the buttons at the bottom of your tool palette there? There was another question. Like by loading poses, you're just you have your character selected. Obviously, you're just dragging them into the viewport. But let's say you wanted
Yeah.
to save that pose right there. What do you do?
Yeah, there's a button. So you do like this, and you get the window coming up. There's this button here on the animate palette, like the guy with the green triangle.
Yeah.
And you get the viewport coming up where you can frame your thumbnail,
Oh
the
man,
pose.
that's so
And you
awesome.
save poses. So let's say I will find my, and then I'll do this. I don't know, 07 test. I save it like this. It should be there in the bottom now. So if, for example, if I create a new action, and it goes back to default, I can just drag and drop,
Drag
and
it
it's
in.
there.
So super easy. Push button, create pose.
Yeah.
Get a image thumbnail for your pose. One of the things that's probably worth looking at for Moto animators is exploring the actions in Moto. That functionality and action layers has increased. There's a few tunes on Pixel Fondue about that. We need more. I think Matt Mearsbergen maybe did some. So again, there's a number of really nice tools in Moto. The time tool, Lukasz and I were talking about earlier, for just scrubbing your animation, using your mouse is a great tool as well. But can you just tell us all the buttons on the bottom real quick?
Yeah, so here on the, let me just switch the scene to something maybe more, there's more stuff in there. Right, so the first button is simply just saying that, it's animate context. So if I switch somewhere, I can just go back here and, the animate. Here I can toggle meshes on off. Here I can toggle controllers on off, and here I can toggle the skeleton on off. So there's a quick toggles for the components of the rig, so you can quickly just see what you want. Sort of, if you want to quickly see the preview of your animation, like without anything cluttering the view, you just go with the just turn off the controllers and then go back. This one is the selection. It's for multiple characters. So if you have multiple characters in the scene, you can tell it to operate on a given one or multiple selected ones. Then this one allows you to, it's actually loading this. So if you have multiple characters, you can, let me actually try it maybe.
Dog.
Okay. This is just the rig, so it doesn't have all the boxes here. Yeah, so you can see. Oh yeah, so it's quite small compared to the big guy.
The guy is huge.
Yeah. But now you have two rigs, and let me just get the skeleton up. So now you have two rigs. There is this biped and quadruped. So if I select, for example, a controller from the biped, and you hit this button, it should kind of select the rig that is appropriate. So this is like a quick pick from scene. And if I select two controllers, like for two rigs, I can load, and then it says all, because now you have all selected two. If there's more characters and you selected 2 out of 3, it will say mixed, much like properties. And then you can do the stuff, some operations on like applying poses or some selections or keyframing, for example. Those tools will just work on your selection, character selection.
Okay, so we got selection. We've got
these are the resolutions here.
Okay.
So as you can see now, the dog, it's only selecting, I think it's only picking, because they have a different resolutions each, though, so it doesn't show up nicely. So let me say, choose the biped, and now I have, I can only see one actually. So maybe it's something, this hasn't been actually touched for long time, so it might be out of order. Yeah, but the idea is that here you can switch the resolutions quickly.
Oh, so those little, okay, so you could just
Like cycle.
cycle your resolutions of your pick your character, pick your character resolution. So we've got view toggles, we got character picker, we've got resolution picker, we've got our poses underneath there.
Yeah, this is saving actions and poses. This one is the IK sync. This is not working yet, but this is space switching. So things like attaching your hand to the hip, for example. So when you animate, you can dynamic parenting. This nicer interface for using dynamic parenting.
Okay.
Controllers. This one here brings the sliders. So if I select an item, I think this rig might be outdated. That's why it's not working correctly. Let me switch here. That's the problem, because if I have something that was built 2 months ago, it's might not be compatible now with the most recent stuff. So so if I select a controller from the arm, for example, and hit this button, it brings the panel for sliders for this module. So if there's anything extra in the sliders, it will pop up. And then once you have this panel open and you keep changing your selections, like I will do head, for example. Now the panel will now switch to the head, so it's just gonna keep being open, but it will always switch to the relevant module.
So this may be, for instance, if you've done some additional rigging and you want some more controls on that particular controller, you could put them there, right, in that key set, and it'll.
Yes. So this is the part of this this whole rig development environment. So let me show you this very quickly. What kind of adjustments you can do and how fast you can do that. So here I have a jaw, and this is the controller for animating the jaw. So now every item in the rig, you can add rig properties to it, like ACS properties to it, and then you get this additional rig tab here in the interface. And this rig tab has quite a few features that you can enable. Most of it is just for riggers, but if you want to do some quick adjustment, there is a feature that's called controller, which is actually what makes this item an animation controller on the rig. And then you can have you can quickly tell it which channels you actually want to control on this one, or which ones you want to be active and part of the actor. So here you can see position, rotation, scale, and you can see that right now I have position and rotation animated, set as animated, and the scale is locked. And I can quickly, go set from preset, and I can change it. So for example, let's say I want to just rotate this one. So notice this thing that when I select this controller, the jaw, I have a transform tool, the item transform, or however it's called, which means it's got the position, arrows, and it's got rotation, so everything in once, because I can do this. On this one, I can move and rotate. But if I go here into this controller properties, and I will change this controller to be, say, just a rotation, it will just go to setup automatically because it has to. So I will go out of setup. So now if I grab this guy, I can only rotate it. And now the position is locked, and not available anymore, and also has been removed from the actor. So so this is and in similar way, you can add user channels to the controller, and this is how this is actually how you. I'm just thinking whether I should demo it on some. Because we're kind of going into the rigging realm, so I just don't want to bog down.
No, I think the main point is you can add do some customization to the controls.
You can and it's all through the interface with the properties. And here, for example, if I wanted to have a controller that will pop up sliders, I will simply change this control from transform channels to user channels, or to item channels. So if I change this to user channels, it will automatically build the channel set to these channels. So you don't worry about any of this. You switch it to user channels, then you pick your user channel, whether it should be animated or not, and then it builds the channel set based on that automatically.
Okay. And what are the keyframe icons down there? This is sort of an animation interface.
Yeah, it's animation. So you have so this is keyframing setting a key. So this is pretty much the same as, setting a key in Modo, but the thing is it always knows which channels to set. It only sets the channels that you actually chosen here in the properties for the controller. So if I grab this guy and I set it to be just rotation and go, I don't know, frame 48 and keyframe it, you can see that it only keyframes the rotation, doesn't do anything else. So it knows. Also, this one is going to reset, so reset to 0. If I set a key, I can, with the green one, I unkey, so I remove the key, and then I have reset. It's removing animation but keeping the current pose. So if I have some animation and will and just want to keep it, remove the animation but keep the current pose, this is where I will use it. And this one will just wipe out everything, so we'll just get you back to no animation at all. And these work on like on 3 levels. So by default it works on the selected item. As you can see now, it's gonna keyframe the entire just the item. But if I drop the selection and no controllers are selected, it switches to the character level, where if I use this, it's gonna keyframe the entire character quickly. So it's very easy to kind of block your poses.
Well, that's what I noticed last night playing with the dog. Is you can, without a controller selected, you can just keyframe the entire actor and just block it, like you said, block your poses out really quickly.
Yes, so that's what you can do here. And then you have it also works if you have a selection but you hold down Shift, then it switches to this character scope. And if you hold down Control, it switches to the channel scope. So then you can actually choose, like, I don't know, I just want keyframe rotation Y, and then keyframe it, and then it should only really be keyframe on rotation Y at this time. As you can see, there's just this one keyframe here.
Okay.
So it's got 3 different scopes: the character scope, item scope, and then channel scope.
Channel scope. So one of the things you did with ACS2 is you created a lot of really good training videos, like 12 of them or something. Are you going to be able to do that with ACS3?
Yeah, sure. It will be. I mean, there are already some there up on the website. You've got the manual section where there is, I don't know, 15 or so.
Okay.
But yeah, I will be adding more, just as we progress and have more features and things are working better.
Okay, and I know you had a video on the fitting context, or not a video, a demo you wanted to show on the fitting context, or did you already kind of go through that with when you were fitting this character?
No, I mean this this is something that it's pretty much the same as in ACS2, so not big difference here. But the idea is that you can it's about the nonlinear workflow. So the thing is that you're not fixed to a certain sequence of tasks that you have to do. You can sort of go back and forth. So in this case, what I would like to show is so I have this guy that's already has some sort of animation. And let's say I need his arms to be longer. So I'm going here to the meshes context and bind meshes so I can operate actually on this mesh. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this mesh, and we'll apply a morph to it with the changes, which is the longer arms. So let's say this is the change I made. I made the arms longer. Now I need to. So now I want to refit the character, right? Because now that my fitting is not right, it doesn't work. So I mean, I could do this manually, but I just made it shortcut. So we're moving through faster. So there's a guide preset. So this fitting, those guides, it's called a guide. You can save presets of these ones as well. And I save the ball or longer arms here. So if I drag and drop this one, you can see that now it pops into the new position. So let's say this is my new fitting for a new size of the arms, and I can apply this. And if I go back to my post scene, it's still working.
So you can save a guide preset. So that's interesting. So let's say you have to rig like 3 characters, and maybe they were made in Maya, and they're all 2 centimeters tall, because that's how Maya thinks things should be. And then you just create a preset for the first one after you fit it, and then you just load up the next guy, and you just load up your preset, right?
Yes, I mean, if the rig is the same, or more precisely, the names of the things are the same, like modules, names of the modules and items are the same, it's gonna work.
Yeah. And then so and that would work even like quadrupeds or things like that. If you've got a quadruped and you do a rig preset for like a lion and you need to move it to a tiger, you just load up that the fitting
Yes.
preset, and then you
Yes.
just slide adjustments, and there
Yeah.
you go. Like I just really, you really did kind of think of everything. Like, and you've been working on this a long time, so it's not like
Oh,
this is your first. It's not like this is the first time you've ever done this. Um, I just can't say how like impressed I am with this, and it's going to be a lot of fun for people to play with, even if you're not super into rigging and that. If you just like want to try animating, just being able to get a quality rig in the viewport and be able to easily bind and start animating, or just animate boxed animals or whatever, it's such a cool thing to have. And the
what?
artist who
Yeah.
created this, what does he do or she do?
Francois, well, he's long time model user and he's long time ACS user, and he's using really ACS a lot, so he's doing a lot of characters. He's done actually quite a few packs for Polystyrene for Williams, packs with meshes.
Oh, okay.
So cartoon, I think feet or legs or something like this. So yeah, he's doing a lot of personal work, and all these characters are actually part of his personal work. So. I guess we can link to the art station, to Francois' art station.
Yeah, bring it up.
Maybe, yeah, I don't have it here right now, but
Oh, we have to
like
link to it. That's okay. So there's a couple. Like obviously, somebody had asked about motion paths. You should obviously be able to turn on a motion path for a controller, correct? And it'll show up. Do we have that display
uh,
option?
yes, it should. I mean, it should be just like a standard.
Moto locator.
Yeah. Let
Okay.
me just quickly pull the ACS website, because I think there's the link to the art station. Let me find. Yeah, so there's
Oh,
Francois.
okay.
So all of these, I mean, a lot of these, I don't know if all, but a lot of these are ACS.
Oh,
So
nice.
this, I think this is ACS2. This is, you see, this is the guy, but rigged with ACS2 because ACS3 wasn't ready. This is I think there was one of the winning entries in the Moto contest,
Oh,
and
there you
this
go.
is, yeah. So this little dog was the first animation or first real thing done with ACS quadruped rig
Oh,
back
cool.
in, I don't know, maybe March, or don't remember now. Uh, yeah, this is ACS2, I think, biped. So yeah, Francois is really using ACS a lot.
Any other questions over in chat? If you want to throw out a question for Lukasz in terms of this is early access, so maybe explain exactly what that means.
So what it means that that it's functional in some capacity, but it's not a production ready software. So don't use it for anything serious, any projects that you might need to deliver on deadline, or depend on you depend on strongly. So it should be really more for trying out, learning, and providing feedback, testing. Yeah, I need all the feedback you can get. This will help me improve this product, and as I go towards the final release, like I said, the early access means that it's still quite a way to go, but yeah, it's already at the point that you can use it for something. It's not going like breaking totally, and there's still a danger of compatibility being broken between builds. So that's another reason why you shouldn't really use it for anything serious or long term. Yeah, so it's it's still rough around the edges, but somewhat functional.
And the idea is you're just going to continuously sort of release updates to this if somebody signs on, and you just
That
download them, drag the folder into the kit directory,
yes,
and you're just ready
yes,
to go. Okay. Uh,
yes, that's
um,
nice.
okay, that sounds good. Anything else you want to get out there, Lukasz, or any other questions?
Just one quick thing. I'm just gonna show you really quickly just a few things on the weighting, because there's also a palette for weighting.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry, I forgot we were doing the waiting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real quick. So the one thing that I added is that you can select weight maps under mouse pointer, so you don't have to really have the skeleton visible.
Wait, how'd you do that? Wait, so you just go to weight context and you just click around on the model and you get the weight map?
I assigned it. I bound it to the shortcut. So here in the rig menu, in the main menu, you have an interface section where you can, key mapping section, and then you have some set of commands that you can map to key quickly. So I map this select weight map under pointer to a key. So now when I'm over the mesh and hit the key, it's just gonna find the weight map that's under the key. And if there are more than one, then you can simply keep hitting the key to cycle through them. So here I have two under this one. You can see here in this area on the hip I have two as well. So that's a quick way to just see how many weights.
Yeah, that's super useful. It's like,
yeah, I cannot live without it. I use it all the time. Just hover over. You can also do this by selecting some part of the mesh and then use these buttons here. It's the same. It's gonna select the weight maps that affect these vertices, and you can cycle through them, or you can select all of them at once, so you can see actually how many of them influence here this area.
Nice.
So these are selection things. So I just wanted to show you a few, because this palette is a mixture of tools that are custom, like this picking weight maps from under mouse pointer, but also just streamlined workflow for the existing model commands. And here I'm just going to show you. So this is after the default model bind, where you do a smooth bind. And now if I pick any of these weight maps, you can see they are obviously very wrong in terms of the influence. But if I click this button to select the weight map influence, you can see that it's pretty much affecting the entire mesh, and it's got the influence that is just some really little fractional value of a percent. So it's really messy, because it's stored as a weight map that is actually influencing the entire mesh, right? So with the ACS, and it's really on the every autosave just kicked in. So it's really on the every weight map. It's like this, you would think that this is the area, but it's actually doing the whole mesh. And yeah, so for smooth bind or hit bind, it's gonna do something like this. So, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. I think it's yeah. So here I can select quickly all the weight maps, and I can use these commands. And these, for example, are commands that will call the values or remove the values below 1 or 2%. So let's say I'm removing everything under 2%. So if I click that, and now I pick again this weight map here and select its influence, you will see that it's much cleaner now, because it's really just having the values just for these vertices, not everything else. So it's like in 2 seconds you have your weight maps much smaller. The file is smaller because you don't have all this redundant 0.5% or micro values. Yeah, so it's you can try it on
it probably evaluates the deformation faster, I would guess. If it
I have not it's quite possible. I don't know. I actually haven't tested it, but
I mean, might be interesting. Way much smaller file, because you do a few thousands or tens of thousands of vertices and apply
yes
data to every one, and then times 20 weight map. I mean, or joints. I mean, yeah, seems like maybe
you can see it. Like if you save a file before and after you will see it. So yeah, and likewise something similar is that I can select all the weight maps, and actually let me drop the selection. I can quantize the values. So instead of having some random, really varied values, I can, quantize them, to 1% steps, which is, again, it's just Modo's features. But normally we just need to go like one by one and do that. So here, if I zoom in, you should see that it's really, it's 0.29, 0.31. So it's all just by 1%. Everything is just 1% step. So another way to quickly, fine tune this stuff. And then the other things is this is very much like Cristobal Villa's weighting kit, which is you can quickly set the values. So let's say I set quickly to 0. And this will also doesn't, it not only sets to 0, but also like cleans the values. So now again, if I select this, this is empty here. It's not zeros, because in Modo you can have a value 0 on the weight map that doesn't really do anything, but it's still stored on the vertex as a 0. So this one actually sets to 0, but it also clears the value. So again, just makes it more efficient. And then you can set the values by 10% or by 5%. So now if you hold down control, you have 5, 15, 25. So you have with these buttons you can go 5 by 5% increments. And if you need finer, then you have these buttons here that you can add 1% or 2.5% or 5%. So as I'm adding, you can see that it's getting more red gradually.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
So just a set of tools to make this workflow faster.
And I'm guessing you could probably do that in any mesh with weights on it, right? It doesn't have to be an ACS character, or or no.
Well,
or not.
So the thing is, the thing is here, the thing is that right now it doesn't select the. It could be working like this. You are right, but by default it's done to work with ACS because it's gonna find. You don't have to select the actual vertex map. It selects the item instead. The right skeleton item. So.
Oh, that's what it's doing. That's how you're getting to the weight map. Okay.
You have buttons here to actually select the vertex map because right now the vertex map actually is not selected. It's working based off the item that is underneath. You don't see it, but it's there. And
I get it. Okay.
If I switch to item mode, it should be actually selected the relevant joint. So this is what it. If I select something like select the weight map, it also selects the joint. Really, it doesn't select the weight map. It actually selects the joint here. So so these commands, they could be made, but the thing is that they have this extra context of the rig. So for example, here they know like what is the skeleton, what is the entire skeleton, which one is the joint, and what to kind of pull, which kind of item to pull to work on. So they could probably be enhanced to this, but this palette will not be enabled if you don't have a rig in the scene.
Can you mirror weights and things like that?
Yes. Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is the main thing. So right now, if I have this, I made this change here, so I cleaned up this bit here. If I go here, it's it's still the same. So I can simply select my mesh and do right to left or left to right. So in this case, it goes right to left. So now if I go here, it should already be fixed.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. It also works with the topological symmetry. So if you want to use the topological symmetry rather than the direct symmetry,
right?
It also has an option that if your mesh is not perfectly symmetrical, it should still work. So it has some sort of tolerance that it can find vertices if you don't have 10 vertices almost at the same spot and moved slightly, then then it might not work. But if you have like a regular mesh with some space between vertices, and then you move them slightly off, you don't have a symmetry anymore, there's a chance it can still find it for mirroring.
Nice. So yeah, really robust weighting tools there. And just on the context, can we just go left to right on them one more time so people sort of understand the concept behind this? So starting.
Yeah. So let me get one more scene just for just the end. Because I have this guy here, and I will just AVP animate. Right, so here I have it posed here, so it's already something nicer to look at. So the context from the left are, so these four, the grouped four are what I call the edit context, which means that they are for editing the rig in some way, and then the fifth one is for animation. So the first one here, and they also have subcontext here, as you can see. So this one is for assembling the rig or for developing the rig, and it's got three subcontexts. This one is by default, which is for assembling modules together. This one has some stuff for sort of rig level changes, you can standardize the rig here, which is just making it into a Modo vanilla scene, which, because right now they have a lot of custom ACS properties, but none of it is affecting the evaluation of the rig. So you can standardize the rig and make it basically run on vanilla Modo. That we will not need ACS to run.
Nice.
Yeah, and there are a few things, like a tool for, let's say, you can quickly change the size of all the controllers, resize them. So this is for adjusting the look. The skeleton. Likewise, you can change the size of it. So so this is sort of rig management, module assembly, and this one is the development. So now it looks obviously horrific, but this is the tab where if you are rigger, here you can build new modules.
Right.
You have some tools to build new modules. Then we have a fitting one, which again has two subcontexts. So this one is a regular for fitting. This one is for more character level changes, like you can resize the entire guide here.
Oh, sweet! Look at that.
And you can just resize the shapes. So if you want, the drawing bigger or smaller, so you can do that as well. So and then you can save the preset, the guide preset. This one is for managing the meshes. So here we've got resolutions. So here you can create those, high, medium, proxy, whatever resolutions. So you can add, I don't know, a new one, and it shows up on the list. You can reorder them. Because this will be the order in which you will cycle through them on this animate toolbar, and then you can just get once you have your resolution, you can rename it or delete. Then you can manage meshes for the current resolution. So here I will configure my main resolution, and we'll just add the the body mesh. I can add the proxies here, and then the rigid meshes. So just rigid attachments of all sorts. And then we have a binding and weighting. So here is a section for binding, where you can create binds. You can bind from maps, so that's gonna use what weight maps you already have. You can copy bind. So if you have two meshes that have the same set of weight maps, the same names, and the sort of are meant to be rigged in the same way, you can copy the bind between them, and then you can transfer bind as well. Which means you have I don't know, a clothes on the character, and they are really close to the body, and you don't want to bind them separately or weight them separately. You can do the work on the body and then transfer bind onto the clothes.
And and there's the weighting tools we just saw.
Yes.
And then
animate.
Animation context. So I really like these ideas of contexts, and it just makes so much sense. And somebody is asking about mocap retargeting. Actually, that's a good question.
So this is, I think I would like to do this, but it's a bigger undertaking than for ACS2, because it cannot be, there's no fixed rig. It has to work with multiple different modules. So it's definitely on the list, but for the time being, and most likely within the version 3 cycle, you will still have to use ACS2 for that. Which is one of the reasons why when you purchase ACS3, you also get ACS2 license, just so you're not left out of these features that might not make it into version 3. So I can't. If there's enough support, so I can extend the development cycle, I'll be happy to squeeze the retargeting in. But if not, you just need to use ACS2 for now for that.
So, essentially, it's more complex because the system is way more complex. It's a modular system. It's not just one set rig where it's just a one-to-one mapping of mocap data. But perhaps there's somebody who's out there making custom rigs using ACS3 could come up with just a mocapable rig.
I have nothing against it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with this development is that, when I add something new, I cannot hard code it, right? I have to find a sort of systematic way to implement it. So it needs to be robust, it needs to be generalized, it needs to be, working, future proof, and all that. So that's why, I have to sort of move, one step at a time. Like if I sorted how, for example, a dynamic properties for the modules are going to work. That was one thing to solve. Then there are more things. How do you do stuff that is easy on the fixed construction, and it works just as easy on the general different constructions, but how do you solve it so you can actually implement it and without hard coding stuff. So so there are all the different parts or pieces that I have to solve one by one. So the retargeting, again, it's something that I imagine could be a feature of the rig, for example, because we right now we have features on the modules that can extend their functionalities, which means that the modules can be assets with the code that comes with them, and that code makes them procedural or dynamic in some way. So I can I'm thinking that maybe the retargeting is a feature of the module, and it's also a feature of the character, for example. So yeah, I haven't precisely I have some sort of idea, vision for that, how it should be working, but one step at a time. I just need
to and and a lot of that stuff may be done at the game authoring side. So you've got. I do have another question here. So one, digital unit mixing animation. So one of the things you'll notice is that Lukasz will often take standard Modo features and repackage them in a nicer looking interface, and maybe add some additional features of his own to them. So animation mixing. There is action layer blending in Modo now by default. Or just I think it came in around 13 something, but there's not a full blown NOA.
No.
And so that's sort of waiting on sort of Foundry to implement something like that. Now maybe I won't speak for Lukasz, but maybe he'll have his own awesome interface for that. But
right. So I think my idea for ACS was always to be a layer over what is in the core. So what I was always trying to do is do not cross, sort of Modo team territory or core, code territory. So I don't implement something that might be implemented, I don't know, 2 years down the line or 1 year or 5 years or whatever, but just gets, done by the core team. And I right now I consider NLA to be this core functionality, because if I start doing this, it's I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that's a great idea. I think see what and so just so you know, Lukasz knows the developers at Foundry and people like Mark Brown who've been working on Modo animation, and is responsible for much of what you see in here in terms of vanilla Modo. So he's not in a bubble. He's not going to be surprised by some brand new. He'll be doing anything like that Foundry's doing. He'll be in the alpha testing phase and making sure it works with ACS. So. I think there's some really good communication going on there, and so anything added on Modo's side is going to be integrated well. In terms of, there is a question, could we have something like you have in the wait list for bones linking the modules? I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Can you repeat? Because
could we have something like you have in the wait list for bones linking the modules?
The wait list
for bones.
I'm not sure if I
don't follow. Sorry, digital unit. Rephrase the question.
I'm guessing it's sort of an interface for doing editing weights or.
Let's see if he rephrases it. Maybe we'll get that. Game export tools. Gangsta is that saying gets his vote. Preselect automatic box proxies. Yeah, the automatic box proxies.
The game export tools are really high on my my list to make it work properly.
I see what he's saying. He's saying for retargeting. So, for instance, like when you do the when you save out a bind map, something like that for retargeting, I think is what digital.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think for this, Modo, I think has it natively even. I think because the ACS2 retargeting was, again, it was based on Modo's retargeting tool. It was just coat it a little bit.
Well, here's a workaround, right? You can bake your ACS rig into a standard Moto rig using the tool that Lukasz has, and Moto does has mocap retargeting built in.
Yes,
So,
and ACS3 is using it. So ACS does
Yeah.
support retargeting, but it's done through the Moto's native one. It's only
Right.
Streamlight.
Right. So it's not like you're completely locked out of that functionality. It's just there's just a little bit of skipping about. So yeah, but my guess is once Lukasz comes up with a system, it's if depending on what the customers are interested in, then it's going to be extremely comprehensive, like everything else. Yeah. So I think. I don't know. Anything else? We've been going for a while. I apologize for the audio problems at the beginning. I'll see if I could just snip those out for the YouTube video. I think I can. YouTube's editor sucks, but I think I can cut that out. If you could call it. How can you be... Just don't even get me started. Like, why can't YouTube come up with just basic editing functionality for videos? Yeah. Anything else? So if you want to jump on the pre-release now, you can do this now. Correct?
Yeah, you can jump. You can jump now. It's 25% discount for 2 weeks until 24th December. Upgrades. There's also an upgrade offer for if you bought either through Foundry or through Gumroad from my store. You can upgrade as well. So yeah.
So you can upgrade. There's a bit of a discount, just if you're just buying for the first time up until Christmas Eve. It sounds like.
Yeah.
And then you also get ACS2 for free.
Yes.
Which
yes. So yeah, right. So even if you if you if you can't use ACS3 right now for production, you can use ACS2 if
right.
If you have a project that suits it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was really good. That again, fantastic job. I know you've been working on this a long time, and yeah, and it's been stressful, and you've put a lot on your plate for one person.
Better do not ask my wife about this. About this project.
So what I'm going to do is if you're liking what you see here and stuff, definitely let's tweet this video around and wherever, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're at, and let's get a little bit of love for just Lukasz's work here and Moto in general. I just think it's a really polished system for any package. There's just no doubt about that. And being able to jump in and use it right off the bat, and we have access to it now. I'm excited. So I'm going to be using whatever free time I have. Again, and what I like to do, I just like bringing in the rigs and practicing animating because it's something that I don't get to do very often. So thanks for watching, and yep, you're welcome for hosting. What does it say? You need to have a weekly podcast. Can I drink during it like Shane does? That might motivate me more. But thanks for watching, and we'll get this up on Pixel Fondue, and let's spread the word, and get to bed. It's got to be after midnight. So, and plus Cyberpunk is out, so it's time to
yeah, it's time for games.
Time for games. All right. Thanks, guys. Stopping the stream.
Cheers. Thank you.
Okay, stream has ended.